Peace everyone, Unmask Art here, and welcome to the Drawing Journal. Alright everyone, I see a lot of you are already in the chats chatting it up before I even begin today, so for those of you returning, I think all of you actually, Chrissy, Brenda, Steve, Kalia, who else? Wendy. Yes. So glad to be back. I've been on a little bit of a hiatus, as I think I mentioned a couple weeks ago. I've been still doing the Patreon live streams. Most of you are aware of that. I think most of you support me over on Patreon and join me on Fridays. For those of you that don't, what are you waiting for? I stream every Friday. And speaking of that, today I'm actually working on a piece that we started over on Patreon, and I figured for today's kind of topic or central theme to the drawing journal, I would just kind of run through some basic kind of ideas or tips for colored pencils. You guys let me know if the audio is okay. I want to make sure that I'm speaking loud enough. But let's see, anybody else? Good day, good evening to you, Chrissy, Carmen, hello, Casey, hello, Christine, Stormy, Jeff. Goodness, it's so great having you all here. I feel like it's been a really long time since I streamed here on YouTube for everybody. I know that's not the case, but for me it feels like it's been forever. So it's super great to be back and see everyone. You should wear your hair like that more often, like it better than totally pulled back, just saying. I usually wear my hair like this, Wendy. In fact, I don't pull it back too often during the streams because I don't like it pulled back either. To be honest with you, I don't really like it. I usually will pull it back only if it's getting in my way. And that sometimes happens. Good audio. All right. Thank you so much for letting me know. Hello, Leontine. Glad to see you here. It's been a while. Okay, so like I said, today's topic is kind of focus on tips on colored pencils. You know, just how do you get better? What maybe are you doing wrong, or something that you could do new to help get better? Before I get into that, like I said, this is something that I started over on Patreon. It's a dolphin, though you don't see the dolphin yet. We're just working on the water in the back. And one of the things I was talking to my Patreons about is, taking the time to make sure you're covering up the paper, and it's really important. So that's got to be the first tip that I have to give you to getting better with colored pencils, or at least making your work look better with colored pencils, and that is covering up the paper entirely. And that involves using multiple layers. I'm talking like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 layers if necessary, to make sure that you see none of the paper texture, you see none of the white underneath, or whatever color paper you're using. But that involves one other idea, which is to not use the color of the paper unless that's the look you're going for. I'm sort of referring to more realistic, more polished looking colored pencil work, but try not to let the color of the paper show through just for the sake of getting what you perceive to be the right color. For instance, if I want a light blue, I wouldn't use a dark blue pencil and then only lightly layer it and let the white of the paper, in contrast to the dark blue pencil, create a light blue, if that makes sense. If that doesn't make sense to you, let me know, and I will try to reword that. But essentially what I mean is, I'm not using the color of the paper to affect the color of my pencils by allowing it to show through my layers. And Steve, I think I think you had a question in the very beginning. I got to scroll all the way back. So one of the question that Steve asked was, why wouldn't you put down as many layers as needed for color saturation in this dark part of the water before just blending instead of just doing a couple layers and then blending? Now, it doesn't really matter if you take that route. Sometimes I will lay down what I think will be enough colored pencil in order for me to just blend out with my solvent and it be covered completely. But for someone that isn't as experienced with colored pencils, I don't recommend going that way, because you don't always know how all your layers are going to mix together with your solvent. So it's a good idea, and I'll do that in my own personal pieces, but I don't tend to do that or teach that because that's something that with experience you'll just naturally start doing, because you'll notice how much of the colored pencil you need to put down before blending with the solvent in order to get really good coverage. Where in the case in which I teach, I usually lean towards minimizing the amount of layers before blending so that you can see the difference kind of building on top of each other. Question, do I break my Prismacolors often? No, I do not break my Prismacolor pencils very often. It seems to be a very popular thing to do to kind of bash how bad Prismacolor pencils are, and talk about how they break all the time, and how when you get them, they're the wood is cracked, or the pencil core is off center. There's a million complaints. There's a million complaints about Prismacolor pencils, and I've been using Prismacolors. Prismacolors were my first colored pencils, and this was 5 years ago. Was it 5 years ago? Oh yeah, it was 4. It was 4 or 5 years ago. Like, you get the idea. And even though within those 5 years, 4 years, whatever, I may have had 10 pencils, maybe 10, that were broken, that were off center, that were just really annoying to deal with. There was probably another 10 that was mildly bad, but not too bad. And then the rest were perfectly fine. Now we're looking at, about 500 pencils here. So if you take that into account, you got 10% at most. Maybe anywhere between 5 and 10% of the pencils were kind of troublesome, and then you got 2 or 2.5% of the pencils that were completely unusable. That's not very many pencils in the grand scheme of things. So to this day, I always recommend Prismacolors as the first colored pencils that you get as a beginner, because 1, they're better than Polychromos, and 2, they're cheaper than the alternative pencils that I would also recommend. So the kind of the negative press, if you want to call it that, of those pencils, I just recommend ignoring, because in the grand scheme of things, they are a much better pencil than what you would perceive them to be if you never used them. If you never used Prismacolors, odds are you've probably just listened to a lot of people talk about how bad they are, and of the people that have used them and agree, they probably let the the negative opinions floating around the internet kind of influence their own negative opinion about the pencils. But I swear by them. I think they're great pencils. They're absolutely perfect for beginners, and I still use them. I have about 600 Prismacolor pencils, so I still use them all the time. I'm not, however, using them right now, so I'm using Luminance and Polychromos right now. Let's see. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. If you guys have any specific questions, feel free to ask me, but make sure you tag me because there's a lot of you in the chat right now. Why do you find them better than Polychromos? Okay, so in terms of for the comparison of Polychromos and Prismacolors, in terms of pencils for beginner, I find them better than Polychromos. I think if a person were to come to me, and I think I've said this a lot over the past couple years, if someone came to me and was interested in getting into colored pencils and they asked me what pencils do you recommend me getting, I 100%, well, I would say 99 out of 100 times I would recommend Prismacolors. If money is not a concern to them, then I would go with Luminance. But so in that regard, Prismacolor is better. It's better for beginner because even though the light fastness is a little bit higher with the Polychromos and the density makes them stronger, they are a higher quality product in terms of, you know, the components that they're made of and everything. But the downside is that Polychromos are all translucent. They're all very translucent pencils, which I find to be, I find that they don't look nice by themselves because they're so translucent. They can look nice. I mean, if you work with them and you know, do multiple layers, you can kind of rid the translucent look of them by doing layer over layer over layer. But I think the more waxy based Prismacolors just lend themselves better to beginners, and that's why I say that I think Prismacolors are better than Polychromos. But that's, you know, that's an opinion. I just want to make that very clear. That's my opinion. It doesn't mean that if you think the opposite that you're somehow wrong and I'm somehow better than you, because I would never. Oh, come on, you guys got to know me that. You got to know me better than that, you know. Obviously, I don't think I'm better than anyone. Oh, hello, Christine B. I'm glad that you're able to catch the live stream. And Christy, glad to see you here. Let me see. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. Remember, if you if you have a question for me specifically, please just tag me doing the @ symbol and then, you know, unmask art. My name should pop up once you type in UN or something like that, and they just click on it and then type your comment. Now getting back to the discussion of Polychromos, and I like the Polychromos pencils. I'm not saying they're like trash and you shouldn't buy them. I'm just saying if you're getting into colored pencils, I think the first set you should get are Prismacolors, and I think the first set that you get, if it's Polychromos, I think you made the wrong choice. But it doesn't mean you can't learn with Polychromos. It doesn't mean anything like that. It's just a personal preference. You know, it's a lot like the topic of paper. You know, the paper that I'm working on right now is the Stonehenge Vellum. Now, this is not a paper that is my all-time favorite. It's not my all-time favorite paper, but I do really enjoy working on it. And there might be people that really dislike this paper. I think that this is also a really good paper for beginners because it's a mid-range paper as far as texture and smoothness. So it's just it's all personal preference. You know, nobody's right, nobody's wrong. It's just a preference thing. You know, so I have absolutely nothing against anybody that loves Polychromos pencils. don't be too upset with my words. Let's see. I prefer Prismacolors to Polychromos as well, so glad I'm not the only psycho who likes the wax-based pencils more. I used the Derwent Studio pencils before I tried Polychromos pencils, and I hated those pencils because the lead was constantly breaking, and I didn't like the outcome I got with those. I hated colored pencils before Polychromos. You know, I'm not familiar with those pencils, but I could understand if you're going from a pencil that, you know, you try to sharpen and it just breaks, and then you go to a nice rigid pencil like Polychromos. I love Polychromos for two things. One, their translucency over top of my wax-based pencils. Like I can layer down a color, and then I can use the fact that they're so translucent to kind of tone my colors the way that I want. And they blend really well with the wax-based pencils. So in combination to the more waxier pencils, I really like adding the Polychromos. But the other thing is I like how sharp I can get them and add in the really fine details, especially when I'm working with things like eyes or fur. I like the being able to get those fine details in fur and hair with the Polychromos. Hello, Riz. Good to see you here. Happy New Year to everybody. It's like the middle of January, but it has been kind of that long since since I live streamed. So I hope everybody had a nice holiday season and had a great weekend this past weekend. I had a really good weekend. That's why I'm in a good enough mood to live stream for everybody. What is my all-time favorite paper for colored pencils? My all-time favorite colored pencil paper is the Strathmore Bristol plate paper. I love that paper. I don't use it as often as I wish. I kind of stick to the Stonehenge Vellum for a lot of my work simply because of the cost. And I'm not, I don't have any plans to sell these originals or anything like that. But anytime I get like a commission to do a colored pencil piece, I stick with the 500 series paper, the Strathmore Bristol plate paper. I love the smooth texture that paper has. See, a lot of people they like texture with their work, whether they're painting on canvas or sanded papers are getting even more popular with among colored pencil artists because there's a lot of benefits to using a sanded paper with your colored pencils. But then you have people like me that I cannot stand texture. Texture is like my worst enemy. I paint on panel. I do not paint on canvas because I cannot stand the texture of it. This is my favorite mid-range paper simply because it has just a subtle minor texture to it that lets the pencil grip to it really nicely. But the Bristol Smooth is definitely my favorite. And another reason I don't use it too often is because a lot of times I'm working on tutorial type things in which I'm instructing, and using the smoother papers, it's a little bit harder because they're a little less friendly. I mean, on this paper here, you can actually erase a little bit. On the smoother papers, there's really no room for error. So I tend to do this because it's a little bit friendlier to beginners and novices of colored pencils. Whereas the smoother papers tend to be, you know, a little less forgiving. Let's see. Hello, Chris. Oh, that's awesome, Chris. I'm glad that that commission worked out for you. That's very cool. Let's see. It was like using more time for sharpening the pencils and drawing. That's why I love my polys. Together in a few luminance with people portraits, bokeh, I prefer luminance. Yeah, yeah. You know, the other problem that I have with Polychromos is the colors. I don't like the colors. I think Polychromos is missing a lot of vital colors that, I mean, the luminance kind of drives me nuts because they don't have very many browns. That's the problem that I have with luminance. They don't have any browns, but Polychromos doesn't have any mid-range colors. And mid-range in the sense of saturation. They don't have any mid-saturation colors. That's the one thing I absolutely love about the luminance pencils is they have so many low saturated colors. I love that. And then Prismacolor, I mean, with 150 colors, they have the best of both worlds. They're just not as light, fast, and high quality, and sometimes, you know, you have to deal with the annoying aspects of cheap products from the Prismacolors. Let's see. Have I or will I do an experiment with colored pencils on sanded paper? Yes, you know, I've already done colored pencils on sanded paper a couple times because I did the I live streamed the whole thing too, so it's like 4 or 5 live streams of me working on sanded paper. That wasn't, well, yeah, it was sanded paper. It was the Can't Send Me Tenta Touch paper, which is a sanded gesso paper. But I did that apple sitting on like the wooden table or whatever. That was on sanded paper. I used the brush and pencil products as well. It was cool. It was a fun experiment, but like I said, the thing that drives me nuts is the texture. I just don't like it. It was fun to work on. It was a fun experiment, and it's just not my cup of tea, I guess, I could say it that way. You know, there's just gonna be styles and techniques that appeal to you and don't appeal to other people, and I would say that's probably one of them. The sanded papers they drive me nuts because I just can't take the texture. I like it smooth. I like everything smooth. That's one of the reasons I'm really drawn to just ink, just like working with black ink, because I would ink something and then you wouldn't even be able to tell it wasn't printed out from a computer. And that's just one of my favorite mediums to use, simply because you can get that effect because everything is so clean and smooth. You know, you can't even get that with colored pencils, in the sense that, you know, once you lay stuff on it, you can see and it gets shiny and weird and stuff. But I still love working with colored pencils. Linda K, your first live stream. Well, welcome. You know, I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, but in the past like week or 2 weeks or something like that, I've got like 1,000 new subscribers. So we're gonna be at 20,000 in like before I finish this live stream. Like the channel is growing insanely fast. And I have to thank all of you lovely people for continuing to encourage me, keep me on the straight and narrow, working hard, and yeah, I really appreciate all you guys. And for that reason, I'm not officially announcing it, but I shared on my Facebook a while ago. I talked about it a little bit too, about doing a giveaway. This company sent me another drawing tablet. It's sitting over here. That's why I keep looking over there. The Huon drawing tablet, and so I'm going to be doing a review of that. That's why they sent it to me, and I'm going to be giving it away because I don't need it, and I think that for everybody that's helped support my channel, shared my videos, gave me thumbs up, whatever. It's gonna just be my way of giving back, and hopefully whoever wins it is well deserving and could be one of you, because I haven't quite figured out. That was actually something that I wanted to talk about during this drawing journal. I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do the giveaway, because I've already done a giveaway. I did a giveaway last summer for when I reached 10,000 subscribers, and I gave away some pastels, I gave away some paper, I gave away my intro to pastel course to a few lucky winners. And the way that I did it is basically my announcement video. They had to see the announcement video so that I knew that they were actually watching my videos and subscribed to my channel, because otherwise they wouldn't see it, because I wasn't going to contact them in any way to let them know that they won. And it took a few times, for somebody to actually win. So I'm going to probably do something similar to that, but I'm not sure. I'm just not sure how to narrow it down to people that really deserve it, because if I just did all of my subscribers, maybe somebody would win that they wouldn't really have a use for it or something like that. So I think I might try to narrow it down just a bit to the subscribers that really want it in some way or another. So I got to figure out how I'm going to give it away. Let me see. I haven't looked, but do you have a tutorial working with graphite pencils? I don't. No, I don't think I have any graphite pencils specifically, like shading with a pencil or anything like that. I did have a live stream that I did with my wife where we used graphite pencils, and I think I may have discussed some things in that live stream, but in the grand scheme of my channel, I haven't really done a lot of graphite stuff. So it's probably something you could look forward to this year, because as I run out of more and more ideas to do tutorials on, I might stretch a little bit into the graphite realm of things. But I don't use graphite very much. Not a huge fan of it, particularly because I haven't quite found the paper I like to use graphite with, and I'm not a huge fan of the shininess that you get from graphite, even though you can use a matte fixative to kind of get rid of that. I don't know. I haven't worked with graphite a whole bunch, and was never really a big fan of it anyway. I like to color, so I stick with colored pencils for the most part. But I might get into a little bit of graphite this year. I'll have to buy some new graphite pencils because I actually used all of them. They're like just little teeny tiny things now, because I've had them for like goodness, 3 or 4 years now, and never replaced any of them. I just kind of used them until they're totally gone. Hopefully I didn't miss anything else. Have discovered I'm relatively new to colored pencils. Started with Prismacolor. I'm trying the Polychromos and just recorded received maybe my first 10 Luminance. Okay, so you still prefer kind of the Prismacolors. Having trouble with layering. Well, let's see here. I kind of got off topic with a whole bunch of stuff and chatting with you guys. It happens all the time. I want to touch back a little bit with the kind of central theme of today's stream, which is how to get better with colored pencils. And the first thing that I put on my list was learning how to maximize the color of your pencils, because the subtle differences between one color and the next color can really only show up if you're maximizing the one color and the other color. And what I mean by that is getting full coverage with that pencil. So what I mentioned way earlier on was, not letting the paper show through, making sure that you're covering up the paper entirely. So you don't really need 500 different colors if you're maximizing the effectiveness of each color that you have and that you use. You don't have, for this blue of the water, I'm actually only using 2 colors. I'm using this Luminance pencil and this Polychromos pencil. Of course, I've only been using this the whole time because I haven't covered up what I'm working on yet. But just taking the time to make sure that you're getting the most of that color, because if you make a color chart, which is the second thing I wanted to mention, with this color burnished, then you know what the color looks like, and you should maximize that color by adding as many layers as you need to cover up the paper. So leading into the second thing is make color charts. I mean, I know most of you already know this, but here's my color chart for my Prismacolors, all 150 colors. I'm going to be making a digital version of my color charts very soon for a conversion chart, so that you can match colors in between Polychromos, Luminance, and Prismacolor. I hope one day I can do that. But if you don't have a master color chart for all of your pencils, take the time to do it. I have it for my acrylic paint. I have it for my markers. I have it for Polychromos, Luminance, and Prismacolor. All on charts that look like that. You've probably seen them hanging up behind me in some of my videos. When I do other videos and you see me talking to the camera, you see them hanging up on the wall beside me or behind me. I cannot express how helpful these charts are. I mean, for one, when I'm just teaching and somebody's like, I'm using this Polychromos color, for instance, I'm using Polychromos 660, and somebody's like, hey, I only have Prismacolor, what color should I use? If I'm using this color and that person only has Prismacolors, what color should I use? All I have to do is look over here and be like, let's see, you should use 906. If you want to match colors between this, I just say 906 is probably pretty close. Maybe 1022. Let's see. Since you don't like graphite much, what about charcoal and tinted charcoal? This way you could still get color, but higher flexibility of pastels. Yeah, that would be a possibility, but I know that charcoal is a little bit messy. I mean, pastels are a little bit messy, but my thought process is, well, if I'm going to just use charcoal, why don't I just use pastels? So, yeah. Sorry, did I miss a question? Trying to figure out what the rest of the picture is. Oh, yeah, it's a dolphin. It's a dolphin. Let me see if I can pull up. I don't know if I can. I'll try to. Let me see here. I think I might be able to pull up a quick image of my reference photo. So let me just do that for you real quick so you know what I'm doing. Color palettes, dolphin. There we go. Okay. Whoa, that's way too big. So here's my reference photo, as you can see, with the color palette. So that's the picture that I'm drawing right now. Oops, wrong, wrong. There we go. Yeah, and I'm just working on the background, obviously the water part. And this was the tutorial that I'm doing over on Patreon. And because of the water, well, the water really isn't that difficult, but it takes a lot of time where you're just layering the same thing over and over and over again. So instead of live streaming over on Patreon and rambling on about how I'm continuing to layer with the same color, I decided to just kind of do a synopsis of what I'm going to do in the background and kind of walk them through my process, my thought process and all that, so that they could take the information and complete their background. And then I also mentioned that I would be continuing to work on it during today's live stream if they wanted to continue and ask me any other questions. I should leave that picture up while drawing. I don't think I'm going to do that. If you know, part of the perks, I guess, of supporting me over on Patreon is that I supply the reference photos and the digital color palette, which you saw a glimpse of there on the side. That has the list of the colors, and I don't want to take away from the people that support me on Patreon, so I'm not going to leave the image up. I suppose anybody that really wanted to take the image could just freeze frame that last 20 seconds or whatever that I had it on, and see what colors I was using or what colors I recommended to my Patreons to use. Alright, that color is about dead, so time to switch to the Polychromos. And I'm going to just be layering again in the same color, because the blue that I just laid down there is not quite the color that I want, and using the nice translucent property of the Polychromos and then blending it out lets me adjust the color just mildly enough to get exactly what I want. Explain why the dolphin can be a challenge. The dolphin is going to be a challenge, period. Not can be, it will be. Because of the smooth texture that the dolphin is. The dolphin has the dolphin has a unique texture to its skin, and it's similar. The technique that you're going to have to use with the color of the dolphin and the skin of the dolphin is very similar to that of drawing a person's face or skin in general, because what creates the three-dimensional look of the dolphin is going to be the subtle color changes, which is the same exact subtlety that you get in skin and smooth textures like that, because the dolphin is very smooth. Not only is the lighting and the kind of the reflection of the light on top of him going to be difficult, but also this just regular smooth area is going to be really difficult. You're going to have a tendency to struggle with a bit of color fear, because the dolphin, this bright blue that you see up here is the same bright blue that you see in the front underside of the dolphin, and a lot of people wouldn't wouldn't feel that connection between those colors, and they'd kind of like want to make it grayer. The odds are you're going to probably make your dolphin grayer than it should be because of color fear, and that's the same thing that happens with skin and portraits and things like that. So yeah, that's why the dolphin will be difficult. And I thought it a good challenge for those of you that didn't know. I was trying to figure out what I was going to draw for Patreon, and I was talking to my wife, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to draw, and she's like, a dolphin, and then, well, here we are, a dolphin. So I didn't even try to come up with anything else. She said dolphin, I said okay, and got a picture of a dolphin, and now I'm doing it. How is Anna? She is good. She's at work right now. She'll be getting off work in the next hour and a half or so. You are persistent, I have to give you that. Yeah, that's what I like to do on Patreon. To be honest with you, a lot of what I draw is also a challenge, and when I like to provide you guys with the real-time live stream version of me drawing, because you get to kind of see me face the challenge in real time, because this is the first time I've ever drawn a dolphin. I've never drawn a dolphin before. So coming this Friday, when over on Patreon, when I start streaming and we start working on this dolphin, I'm going to be kind of thinking about beforehand how to approach it, what would be the best avenue to make it easy, not only for me, but also for you as well. So yeah, I think that's something unique that I offer, because I don't know anybody else that does the Patreon live streams the way that I do. I had a couple people come over from other artists that shared their complaints with me and shared their gratitude for the way that I do things as opposed to other people. So I try to just do the best that I can, and the way that I approach how to do things is very systematic, and I think that makes it easier to convey the strategy and the information needed to get better and to do things you don't think that you were able to do before. Hello, Maria. I think that's your name. Glad to see you in the live stream. You're going to work on a very challenging soldier's cross. Interesting. Is it worth buying Luminance pencils? Yes. I think that it is worth buying Luminance pencils. I've had my Luminance for a couple years now, and they are always my favorite pencils to use for the subjects that I like to color. But if you're just getting into colored pencils, then, you know, I always recommend Prismacolors. The full set of Prismacolors are remarkably inexpensive in comparison to any other brand of colored pencil. You can get the full set of 150 for like $90. And I actually have a link to that in the video description because it's just what I recommend. But if you already have them and you're looking to upgrade, you know, step up your colored pencil collection a lot, then Luminance, there's no drawback to buying Luminance, except that you'll wish you had more, because they're such great pencils. I think what I like about Luminance the most is just the colors, to be honest with you, because I find that their color choice that they offer, even though I feel like they're missing brown, like just a brown, just like a regular brown, a normal brown. If you have Polychromos, I'd be talking about like 179 or maybe 180. But other than that, they just have such good color choices. I mean, with only 72 pencils that are actually color, or 70, is it 74 or 72? $76? Is that 76? I don't know. Something like that. Yeah, I think it's 76 colors, but that's it. Maximum 76. And they just picked the right colors so that you can get just about anything with just those 76 colors. Wow, that's crazy. Prismacolors go on sale for $45, $48 on the Black Friday and holidays. That is insane. That's crazy. That is also insane about Luminance being way too expensive in Italy. Yeah, that's crazy. That is a crazy amount. 14 euros for one pencil? No thank you. Even I'd say no to that. You might be able to find a better deal if you buy them out of the UK for Luminance. Let me see. What did I think I may have bought like 3 or 4 from Jackson's Art Supply. Couple extra Luminance pencils. Now I'm wondering if did I even get those in the mail? I don't remember getting them. I'll have to check, but Do I use white pencils? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely use white. Um, it's not a pencil that I use too often, but I use it in a lot of things, because I use it because it's a really good color for desaturation. Sometimes you just don't have the right color, so you have to mix to get the right color. And one of the one of the struggles is getting the right color saturation. So to tone down the saturation of a color, you can use white, you can use other colors, you can use grays, things like that. But I don't use a lot of white. I don't use too much of it. Because when you mix white with another color, it tends to make things look washed out a little bit. So try not to overuse it. Don't depend on it too much. Same thing with black. Black's just like white. You don't want to rely on it too much because it'll make things look dead. Like a lot of people, they tend to lean towards using black to get really dark shadows, when what they should do is just use really dark colors and then maybe mix in a little bit of black, but never actually leave it like pure black. Try to use a diversity of colors in your shadows. And the other thing about white is that people tend to use that to bring out highlights, make things look real bright. But the secret to getting your highlights to look really bright is to just get your darks really dark and get your mid-tone colors the correct value. Oftentimes people don't darken their mid-tone colors nearly enough as they should. So if you're using a solvent to blend your colored pencils and you're getting it yellow, if you're making it yellowish, that sounds like a problem with the solvent you're using. I could literally take my solvent and pour it on my paper and ruin this drawing, but it wouldn't turn anything yellow. So if you're getting a yellowing effect, you might want to think about changing your solvent, because it should not be yellowing. There's nothing in a solvent that should make your colors or your paper yellow. It could also be your paper. I don't know what your paper is, but yeah, it should not be yellowing at all. And yeah, also not using too much solvent. That's a struggle for a lot of people. I need to make a tutorial on how to use solvent properly for colored pencils, because I think too many people are using it or overusing it incorrectly. It should only take a really small amount to use with solvent, because it does. There's no benefit to using a lot of solvent on your work, because if I would see, you can probably see, maybe you can see in the camera how this here is much more blended than this over here, and it's because I'm one layer ahead on this side than I am this side. But it wouldn't benefit me to use a bunch of solvent to get this looking like this faster. There would be no, the amount of solvent isn't what's going to change that. The amount of pencil on the paper is the only thing that's going to change that. That's what I miss with the Polychromos range. Some really dark colors like dark blues or browns. Okay, I'm confused because we must be using two different sets of Polychromos. Because here's my Polychromos color chart. 176 and 176, 280, 177 are really dark browns. Dark blues, you have 157, 247, 246, and 151. And if you consider this dark purplish blue, 141 dark blue, even 110 is pretty dark. It's just going to take more layers. That's the problem that I have with Polychromos. It just takes more and more layers. Even though this entire color chart is burnished 100%, nearly every single one of these colors is translucent. So these dark browns are never going to be dark unless you like put 5 or 6 layers down. Now your question regarding the luminance, no, it's taped too much to the wall. The luminance has 159, which is a really pretty deep blue, and then for the dark brown, it has the best. Yeah, that is the whole Polychromos chart. Yeah, what I just showed you was the whole Polychromos chart. Luminance has the best dark brown, which is the 407 and the 046. You get the best of both worlds with those two browns because the 406, even though it's a really dark brown, it's actually one of Luminance's most translucent colors. So you can use it to tint things really well. Where on the other hand, the 407 is just the best dark brown all around. I use that. I've probably went through like 3 or 4 of the Luminance 407s because that color is so good. It might depend on the paper a little bit if you're using the Polychromos. If you're using it on a thinner or smoother paper than the Stonehenge Vellum here, you won't be able to layer nearly as much. So if you're working on something softer like a hot press watercolor paper, you're going to be able to get a little bit deeper with those Polychromos colors, simply because it will allow you to layer 1 or 2 more times to get that kind of get rid of that translucency. What you could also do if you're working on smoother paper is just do a really light layer. Don't press into the paper, and then use your solvent to blend it, and then do multiple light layers, because doing it that way you won't damage the tooth of the paper as much, and you'll be able to add a couple layers of the Polychromos over top of itself to help get that depth in the color. Yeah, so hopefully that helps a little bit. Let's see, I forgot what I was doing. Okay, I'm going to be blending with some thinner here. I am using, by the way, I'm using Zest It. One of the questions that I often get is what thinner or what solvent am I using? And my answer is always whatever's available and cheapest, because I've used like 4 or 5 different brands, and not a single one of them has been different. I like Zest It. For me, it has a very, very faint smell, but only if I hold it up to my nose and try to sniff it, which I don't recommend doing. But one of the things I always say about blender or as a solvent is just find one that's cheap that doesn't bother you. That's all. I'm going to try to hold this here a little bit so you can see how little of thinner I put on my brush, like pretty much as little as possible. And a good rule of thumb with solvent, when using solvent, is always use the smallest amount possible, because it really doesn't take all that much to break the binder holding the colored pencil pigment together and allowing you to move it about the paper. And the downside to using too much on the later layers of your work is that you will actually start removing the pigment, and you'll start showing like a blotchy mess of where the paper starts to show through again. See, this side here is quite smooth. My brush at this point is nearly entirely dry, but I can just sit here and smooth out the very small amount of pencil texture left, and it doesn't really take a whole lot of effort. You just gotta spend a tiny bit more extra time waiting for the binder to break up a little bit, but eventually it will, and you'll get a smooth result. And another question that I kind of get is, what brush do I use? And this was a bit of a topic of discussion on the Patreon live stream. And I've been using this same round brush for 5 years to blend colored pencils. I've never changed it. It is a super cheap $1 round brush. It is a round brush number 8. I always recommend using a round brush because I find that they are the most versatile of the brushes. Allows you to get the sharp point to blend small areas, and then you can just use the side to blend your larger areas. It doesn't soak up. Use a synthetic brush because animals, and the synthetic brush tends to not absorb the actual bristles, don't absorb the liquid, so it holds less, which I find to be kind of helpful actually. See, here's the benefit of the round brush right here, because I can just get right up to the edge, a nice clean sharp line with a lot of control. And then I can just add more pressure to get a thicker, wider line for the larger areas. What is the difference between odorless and low odor solvent? I think you just kind of answered your own question there. One is odorless, one is low odor. Sorry, I missed what Brenda said. What did Brenda say here? Thank you for streaming today. Been feeling low about drawing, and this was a good recharge to hear your input on. Well, I'm good. I'm glad to hear that, Christine. I hope that you and everyone else in the chat can feel a bit refreshed and motivated and inspired to create something today. Is there anybody watching the stream that's working on a project right now? I'd love to know what you're working on. I always enjoy seeing your guys' artwork. And if you're not already a member of the Unmasked family, if you ever have any questions, I try to answer as many questions I can that I come across in the Facebook group. I have the link to that in the description if you want to join it. Yeah, you can always share your work there for tips on how to make it better. If you're stuck on something, there's a lot of really great artists in the group that are very knowledgeable and are more than happy to assist you. I think we get some pretty good discussion in the group on how to improve your work and just general art tips. And it doesn't need to be colored pencils in particular. For me personally, I am more of an expert in colored pencils, pastels, and acrylic painting, but and oil painting. But you know, you can ask about anything that you're working on. I'm sure we have multiple disciplines in the group at this point. You're working on the Sheldine jellyfish. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad you brought her up because I totally almost forgot. So for those of you that don't know Sheldine from Sheldine Fine Art, I should have put her channel in the description. Yeah, I should have done that. I'll have to do that after the live stream. But this week, Sheldine and I are going to be doing a stream together, and I'm going to be teaching her and everyone else how to do clouds with soft pastels. So we have a picture. Actually, I think I can show it to you since I know how to do that now. Yes. We'll be doing that this Thursday, and it will be 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think. Yeah, it should be 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is the time frame. So let's see here. Let me show you the picture we're going to be working on. So like I said, I'll be teaching you guys how to do clouds in soft pastels, and here is the picture. So this is the reference photo that we'll be using. For the live stream, and I'll be just showing you how to create this image here using soft pastels. And again, that will be this Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sheldine and I, we've known each other for quite some time now, and we've collaborated a couple times, but we've never done a live stream together. And I also want to mention that this live stream is going to be on her channel, not on mine. So make sure that you go over to her channel and subscribe and hit the bell button so that, or the reminder button on the live stream so that you don't miss it, because I'd hate for you guys to miss it. So if you're in Central European time, it should be anywhere between 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. that Central European time that we'll be live streaming, and I think that's 5 a.m. Australian. She lives on the east coast, I think, of Australia. So whatever that time zone's called. Eastern Australian time zone. 5 a.m. So it's pretty early her time. This is we actually planned on doing this live stream quite some time ago. Do you think I could use odorless mineral spirits with watercolor pencils in coloring books? Probably a weird question to you. Well, if you're using watercolor pencils, why use mineral spirits? You can just use water to do that. To blend the pencils, you can just use water. So I don't know if there'd be any benefit. There probably actually wouldn't be. Maybe, actually, I take that back. Try alcohol. Try alcohol, because I know that if you're doing it in coloring books, the pages are probably going to be pretty thin. If you use water, it's going to absorb into the paper, and it's going to be wet, and the paper is going to wrinkle and stuff. And I understand that you're probably asking about using mineral spirits because it dries fast. I would go beyond that and just recommend trying out alcohol, because that will dry even faster than mineral spirits. And you might get it should still blend because water, alcohol is, waterish. So try that, and you should let me know what the results are of that. I have a full set of watercolor pencils, but I never use them. Sorry if I missed anything. What kind of paper will the clouds be on? I'll be doing the clouds on Clairefontaine pastel matte. Clouds are the devil. Actually, clouds are so easy. I don't hate me for saying that. But there's going to be some really simple things that I'm going to tell you on the live stream that are going to make clouds seem like the easiest thing in the world, because clouds are basically just two gradients. It's just two gradients. That's all clouds are. They're just two gradients. And if you can make a gradient, you can make clouds. So it will be, if you struggle with clouds, I think it will be a really helpful tutorial. And since it's going to be a live stream, and it's going to be long, and I don't know how many people are going to watch it, we're going to, I am going to also do a separate tutorial on doing clouds. But I also have clouds with pastels specifically, because I actually already have a cloud tutorial on my channel for colored pencils. I did this last year. It's not the prettiest thing to look at. I did it fairly quick, but this is just a quick cloud tutorial that I did with colored pencils, so you can look that up on my channel. I have both the time lapse and like an 8-minute kind of instruction video on how I did it, but I will be doing, like I said, I'll be doing a pastel cloud tutorial on my channel very soon as well. How about clouds with graphite? Clouds with graphite are probably about the same. One of the problems that I think people face with graphite is they're always too afraid of going darker, where they think things are really light. But in the sky, oftentimes the blue part of the sky is quite dark, and they never go dark enough to get their clouds to show up the way they should, because a highlight can only ever be as bright as the darkest colors around it. So if you don't go dark enough with your graphite in the sky, then your clouds will never look bright or cloud-like. But the other problem is using is getting lines in the sky. Obviously you want to avoid drawing any lines. But for, a kneaded eraser is also going to be your best friend for creating clouds with graphite. So if you don't have a kneaded eraser, then you are well behind the curve on creating good clouds in graphite. So make sure you get yourself a kneaded eraser. Thank you very much, Matt Dia. I still am not sure how to pronounce your name, but I'm glad that you enjoy my channel, enjoy my work. A 100-inch. You're watching me on a 100-inch screen? I don't know how I feel about that. I wouldn't even watch me on a 100-inch screen. I think my monitor's 22, and I don't even like watching myself on that. I felt like I was going to get more done on this today, but I'm really not feeling like I am going to be. I still have like 4 other colors that I need to play around with, and I still have to blend all of that. You're probably asking yourself, okay, so when is it going to start looking like water? Well, that's going to be a little while. This background is still elbows deep into the ugly stage at this point. Oh, hello, Amy. I'm glad that you could also catch the live stream. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to ask. They don't even have to be, they don't really have to be art related either. You can ask other weird stuff. The drawing journal is, the drawing journal isn't always about like learning specifically. I know I gave it the title that I was going to talk about, like tips on getting better at colored pencils, and hopefully I've disseminated a bit of information that will help you with your colored pencil work throughout the live stream. So if you have anything specific that you're struggling with, feel free to ask. But then again, the drawing journal has always been about, just hanging out, connecting, you guys watching me goof off with pencils or paint or whatever, and then me just chatting and rambling on about my day and things like that. I did kind of want to talk about like why I've been off YouTube for like a month. I've just been really drained with YouTube, I guess. So I just needed a little bit of a break, and I wasn't drawing really anything. I did do a commission, and that's about it. And I still have like 5 left to do, and I keep procrastinating on them. But yeah, hopefully I will get those done sooner rather than later, just so I can get them out of my hair. Because the more commissions I get, the more and more I want to refuse doing them. I have the hardest time saying no to people. About when they ask me to do a commission. And it's even harder to say no to somebody when they say yes to your ridiculous prices. Hold on a second. I just read baby oil. Where is baby oil being talked about? What to use instead of paint thinner. Use odorless mineral spirits. Use alcohol. Use Zest It, but never, ever, ever use baby oil. Okay? Don't use baby oil. Just because something works doesn't mean you should use it. Baby oil is bad for 2 things. One, it's going to take forever to dry. It's oil. You know how long it takes for oil to dry? Forever. The other reason is that it's going to turn your paper yellow. Maybe not right away, but it will within a year for sure. So there's plenty of alternatives to strictly paint thinner. I don't think I've ever used paint thinner. I often refer to it as thinner, but sometimes I call it odorless mineral spirits. Sometimes the best way I use to describe it is solvent. I try to get in the habit of only referring to it as a solvent, because that's the general term, whether you are using odorless mineral spirits, alcohol, zest it, or actual paint thinner, which, like I said, I don't recommend. Yeah. But yeah, you can find it. You can find something odorless in just about any art store, and it's not like it's expensive. Honestly, baby oil might be more expensive, to be honest with you. The brand has never made a difference for me. Like I said, I've used like 4 or 5 different brands of a solvent, and honestly, the only thing I look for is something that doesn't smell really bad and give me a headache. So yeah, it can be used. It does work. I understand where you're coming from, Chris. Don't worry about it. I understand. I'm not trying to give you a hard time. Alright, this still needs like 1.5 million more layers, but I'm really tired of using the same color, so I think I'm going to just move on, because I'm feeling a little bit impatient right now. Let's see, what color do I need here? I can't see my color chart. I need 171. Where's that color? I know it's here somewhere. This color, and 154. There we go. Oh, we were talking earlier about how Prismacolors are crap, and everybody says they're crap and broken, and the pencil core is off center. Well, here's a Luminance pencil, and the core is off center. So you get defects in all your pencils, maybe more so with colored pencils and Luminance, but this is the first for Luminance. I probably have a little over 120 Luminance pencils, and this is just one. This is the first one that I've ever had that was messed up. I don't know if you can see it. That might be too blurry. But you can see that the core's off center, and when I sharpen it, the wood, I had to use a little X-Acto knife and actually cut it. So it's a little bit of a pain. What is the most challenging subject that you have found when using colored pencils? Portraits. Next question. Yeah, portraits are the hardest. Because here's why I think portraits are the hardest. Because everybody knows what people look like, and if you get it wrong, everybody knows that you got it wrong. But if you're drawing a landscape, a dolphin, a tree, a car, a building, anything, if you're drawing anything other than human, you can get a lot of things wrong and nobody will ever notice. But you get something wrong on a person's face, everybody sees it. You don't have to be an artist to see it. And that's why I think portraits are the hardest, because everything about it is delicate. It's like everything has to be in its place and the right color and the right value for it not only to look like the person that you're supposed to be drawing, but also just to look good. And so that when everybody looks at it, they see a well-drawn portrait. And I that's why I love drawing people. My favorite subjects are portraits and figures, because they're just so hard. And I love the tiny little delicate like things about it that make it so hard. So that's, yeah, hands down. I hope that it never changes. I hope that I don't come across something more difficult than a portrait. And I hope that I don't get so good that with portraits and figures that they become boring. So until that time, it's always gonna be my default answer to that question, what I find most difficult. Let's see. I kind of think the dolphin is too close up to add another fish. What got me into art? I've been drawing since I've been 6 years old, so about 22 years now. And when I say that, I mean when I was 6 years old, I was drawing with a purpose. Like, I really enjoyed it, and I stuck with it throughout my school years. Barely took any time off, except after I graduated and was in the military. And then right after getting out of the military, I was right back into creating art. And it was just a couple years after that I started my YouTube channel. But what got me into art was something I can't even say. I mean, I don't know what compels a 6-year-old to just sit there and draw all day. I'm not sure, but I did. And what the better question would be is what kept me into art. And what kept me into art is the search for perfection. I like, and I've said this a few times, one of the things that I love about art is that there is I do not have to rely on anybody for what I create. I create whatever it is that I want, and I get to choose whether or not I make the mistakes that I do. The mistakes that I make are 100% my fault. I'm in control 100% of the time with my art. And because of that, when I mess up, when I finish and I don't like it, there's only one person to blame, and that's myself. And I like that about it. I don't like relying on other people. So I've never really been big in team sports, because I don't like relying on other people to win. And with art, not that there's an end goal or a win with art, but I like the self-reliance of art. I like the therapeutic aspect of art, because when I get lost in a piece, I can just sit here and draw for hours and hours and hours. And I don't think about food. I don't think about anything else other than just being completely lost in what I'm doing. That's my favorite experience. And what drives me to continue to create is a passion for perfection. I want to create a perfect piece. in which when I look at, I can see no mistake. I am a million years from ever getting to that point, but it doesn't stop me from trying every single time. And the one thing I hope I never get to is that point. I actually don't want to reach the perfection, because I've said a few times that if I ever get perfect, if I were to ever get perfect or so good at something that I can't get better, I would quit it right away. The day that I perfect art is the day that I quit, because it is that constant struggle for perfection that I love trying to obtain, but always secretly hoping I never actually achieve. I only think about food when you guys are chatting me up and my wife is in the kitchen cooking something. But I know what you mean, Wendy. Do I ever use colorless blender? Yes, I do. I do use the colorless blender. And if you want to know what colorless blender is best, the Luminance full colorless blender is best. Oh my gosh, the fact that this pencil is off center here is really getting on my nerves. Yeah, it keeps, since it's off center, I can barely even color with it because it's just all wood. Yes, I think it's incredibly therapeutic. Yeah, definitely. It's meditative for me. It puts me in a certain meditative state when not necessarily when I'm live streaming, because if I did that, then it'd probably be really boring for you, because I'd sit here and I wouldn't talk. But when I really get in the mood to draw, and I can just sit there for hours and hours without saying a word, just kind of lost in whatever music I'm listening to the point that I don't even know what music I'm listening to, because I don't know if that ever happens to you guys, but sometimes when I'm drawing and I'm listening to like one of my favorite records or something, and I'm waiting, like I catch myself hearing the music, and then I'm like, oh, the song that I really like is on next, and then in the midst of the waiting for it, and I'm coloring or drawing or painting or whatever, I lose the conscious thought that I'm listening to music, and before I know it, I'm like 5 songs past the song I was really looking forward to hearing, and I don't even remember hearing it. Happens to me all the time when I'm drawing. I don't think perfect even exists. That might very well be the case. I think everybody's going to have a different definition as to what perfect is. I don't know what perfect is for me, because I've never seen it. But if I happen to create it by accident, that will be the day that I quit. That's why I think I'll most likely never obtain it, is because I don't even know what it is. That's yeah. That's kind of how I see it. I need to use an X-Acto knife to sharpen this pencil. Give me a minute. All right, look how janky that thing looks. It looks terrible. It's really off center. Yeah, it's really bad. Just want to mention what the squirrel from your tutorial I made. Oh, you made a 11 by 14 print and framed it? That's awesome. Sorry, did I miss somebody coming into the chat? Oh, hello, Lynn. Welcome. I am making my color swatches, and I wonder what is better to do. Better to do than make color swatches? If to group the swatches by brand, or to mix the brands and group the swatches by color. I thank very much any advice and suggestions. So when you're making a color palette, I call it a color palette. You can make it color swatches, whatever you want to say. If you're making like a master color chart, like this, all my color charts I made based on the factory sealed position. So my color charts match the factory packaging of the pencils. And then when I'm done with the pencils, I put them back in their factory sealed position. That way, I don't have to search for my pencils. I just look at my color chart and I know, okay, it's the first rack, 5th from the left. Or it's, this is Prismacolor. So Prismacolor have packs of 24. 1, 2, 3, 4, wait, no. How many is this? Yeah, no, this one's off because they have like packs of like 30 or something like that. So it's kind of like weird, so I can't really do it like that. But with I tend to know which rack of pencils I'm on depending on what position I am, because I've done it so long. But if you're talking about color swatches for one particular piece, for instance, like a color chart for this drawing here, the way that I like to collect my colors and kind of create my swatches, as you refer to them as, is by subject. So when I create my color palettes for my work, I always do it based on what I'm working on. So the background has its own, the dolphin has its own. There's only 2 things in this drawing, so the background and the dolphin. But if I were to not leave my colored pencils in their factory position and package, then I would probably do it by color. And I'd start with like white. I'd go through the yellows, the oranges, the reds, into the violets, into the blues, into the greens, probably. Something like that. I don't know. Or I'd go from like yellow into the... I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think in the end, it's not really going to make that big of a difference. So just do them however you want. My grays tend to be all collected because that's how they're packed factory sealed. All the grays and then the black and white. Do you still use Pixlr when making your palette? No, I don't use Pixlr. I use Photoshop. I only showed using Pixlr because I know not everybody has Photoshop, and so I did the tutorial that you're referring to there about making color charts, color palettes. I used Pixlr, that way everybody had free access to a program that would allow you to do what I do. But I use that technique that I explained in that tutorial that you're referring to, Chris. I use that same exact technique all the time. Every single project that I create starts with me making a color palette for the project. I don't even touch pencil to paper until I know what my colors are. And I know what I always pick the colors in all three sets of pencils. So if I have a color that I always start with Luminance first, and then I match that color to the Polychromos, and then I match that color to the Prismacolor. So for any given color, I have three pencils that are either identical or really close to one another to give me a little bit of a range within that one color. I don't know how long I've been streaming for. Let's see. So about an hour and a half, I'd say. So not too bad, not too long. My wife is going to be home soon, and I still need to make the bed. So I'm probably just going to finish up with this color, sign off for the day, and I'll see you guys on Thursday over on Sheldean's channel doing some clouds and pastels. And for those of you that support me on Patreon, we will be continuing on to the dolphin on Friday. So if you want to see more of this dolphin, then I recommend you going over to my Patreon page, signing up for the $5 pledge. I stream every Friday. Once you sign up, you'll have access to, goodness, I don't even know, 300 more hours of my live streams, where I teach you step by step. You also have access to all of my previous reference photos that I've used throughout the past year, 2 years or so. So a ton of content. Yeah. I think I'm done with this color. I'm going to blend out with the thinner. How do you deal with the thing when you sit down, set up everything, and then what to draw? I never sit down and set up without already knowing what I'm going to draw. So I either don't sit down and set up, or I sit down and set up and draw. Let's see. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. Alright, let's blend out, and I'm going to start winding down the live stream here. So if you guys have any last minute questions, go ahead and ask them now, and I'll try to get to them before I sign off. But I really appreciate you guys coming by and hanging out with me. It's always fun. I love having you guys here, and this is why I call it the Unmask Art family, because you guys are just so inspirational to me. I almost never run out of things to draw, simply because you guys keep pushing me to just go beyond what I usually think about drawing. And whatever it is I teach you or inspire in you, I'm glad that I do it, because you guys do it for me as well. And I always try to show my appreciation, and I hope soon I can do this giveaway for all of you. Not only will I be giving away the drawing monitor, the drawing tablet thing, soon, but I'll probably be giving away some artwork as to. I might just give away a couple originals that I'm not attached to in any way. If you guys are interested in obtaining one of my original pieces, maybe a pastel piece or something like that I did a while ago. I have a couple small ones I wouldn't mind sending out to a few of you lovely people if you were interested. Speaking of which, as far as I know, Sheldean and I are also going to be doing a little little bit of a giveaway. I'm going to be giving away some of my prints on Sheldine's live stream, so I hope that you're able to catch it, because I'm not completely sure how she intends to do the giveaway there on the live stream, but I told her that I'm happy to participate. I have a few prints. I think they're actually right here. Let me see. Yeah. So a number of my supporters over on Patreon actually got a copy of these. So I have this print here. I have this print here. These are pastel pieces that I did recently. Hopefully you're not getting too bad of a glare, if you didn't see that very well. Then I have this one. This was the waterfall that you guys were begging me to do for the longest time. And so I have multiple copies of these that I'll be giving away on the live stream over on Patreon, or over on Sheldine's channel. So I have a number of them that I'll be giving away, so hopefully I'll see you guys over there. And yeah, one last question. Do you use about as many layers of light blue in comparison to dark blue? Wondering about the contrast. So for the layers of these colors here, Steve, the amount of layer numbers is only relevant to how many layers it takes for you to cover up the paper completely. So I want to cover up the paper completely with both the dark blue and the light blue in both areas. And when I'm blending out here with the paint thinner, I'm not trying to keep my lines really sharp and clean here. I'm kind of blending the dark and the light blue together a little bit. But as far as the amount of layers with the light blue, just use as many as you need to cover up the paper. And that's really all there is to that. But yeah, thanks for asking. Hopefully you can work that out. I look forward to seeing a picture of your work in progress of your dolphin, Steve. And I think that's going to be it for today's live stream. So thanks again, everyone, for... Oh, wait, one more question. How many layers after solvent? Or, wait a minute. Can I use as many layers after solvent? You can use as many layers until the pencil doesn't stick to the paper anymore. But like I said, that's going to be it for the live stream. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. And I'll be back next Monday, so stick around. Give the video a thumbs up so I know I'm doing something right. And I'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.